I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents. TV viewers get teed off after a major broadcast network knocks off a major star.
For which it stands, one nation.
Order!
Plus, what are you doing to celebrate the 4th? Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio has something he does not want you to forget.
Again, anything we can do to remember that freedom has a cost is a very good thing.
And it's an annual Independence Day parade come early in Brooklyn, courtesy of the Knights.
It's a celebration. It's like an anniversary, a birthday, and we're part of it.
Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Matt McClure has the night off. Well, most of us can recite the Pledge of Allegiance as easily as we can rattle off our cell phone numbers. And we all know that the nation's oath of loyalty to the red, white, and blue includes the phrase, under God, except perhaps on NBC. Well, the network did find itself in some hot water recently when it ran a feature on patriotism during the final round of the U.S. Golf Open that abolished the almighty.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Order!
With liberty and justice for all.
Interesting to hear it there. Well, shortly after the omission heard round the world, sports host Dan Hicks apologized for the cutout in response to fierce public outcry. And joining me on the phone now to dissect what might be the next frontier in our country's ongoing culture wars is Father Robert Barron of Word on Fire fame. Father Barron, thank you so much for joining us today here on Currents.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Nice to have you here. So tell me, why do you think they took it out in the first place?
You know, it's a good question. I'm not really sure what the answer is. My guess is they didn't want to offend non-believers. They wanted to be maybe so neutral and bland about religion, they just decided to drop it out completely. Of course, in the process, they ended up offending about 90% of the country. So I'm not quite sure what the exact motivation was. I suppose, you know, at the extreme, you'd say it's a kind of secularist ideology, or it might just be a desire, you know, not to offend anyone, which backfired, ended up offending almost everybody.
Yeah, well, were you surprised that there was such a large public outcry about that omission?
Not really, because, I mean, the studies keep showing over and over again that in the 90s percentile of this country still believes in God. Atheists have come out of the closet a bit in recent years, have been much more aggressive and public in their attacks on religion, but still, most Americans are religious, if by that you mean they believe in God. So I wasn't too surprised there was a strong reaction.
Well, do you think that the anchor there, Dan Hicks' apology, do you think that was enough, or do you think the public should have really taken it to the tweets, if you will, and really expressed their outcry a little bit more vehemently?
Yeah, perhaps they should have. That's why I wrote a little piece about it, because I think it's worth complaining about. I don't think it's just a little matter of etiquette or, you know, public piety. I think there's a very important issue at stake here when we as a country confess that we are under God. I'm not saying now that we're aligning the country with any particular denomination, but I am saying it's very important for any political system to acknowledge that there is a higher criterion of justice to which it's trying to conform itself. The minute you say we're not under God, then some earthly person or party or institution is going to move into the place of God. And see, that's why I say it's opening the door to tyranny.
To tyranny,
Because a tyrant, by definition, is someone who does not acknowledge a higher authority, who simply says justice coincides with my will. Now, I'm not saying we have tyrants all over the place in America, but I'm saying the move to eliminate God from the public conversation is an opening to that door. So I think it's a dangerous door to go through.
Yeah, and you cite references to regimes like Cambodia's Pol Pot or Nazi Germany in cases where you see that has happened, and you obviously don't want that to happen here. Do you think this is a trend sort of along the lines of the Happy Holidays versus the Merry Christmas kind of debate that comes around come December?
Yeah, it is, although I think it's even more dangerous because it's a more sweeping, more generic sort of elimination of religion and of God, and I think that sets us into a very bad spiritual stance. So there is a general tendency to try to marginalize religion or to privatize it. But see, my argument is that's dangerous for a democracy. When religion is privatized, then the door is open for tyranny coming from some quarter. It might be even the voice of the people can become tyrannical. If a higher criterion of justice is not invoked, we're going to walk down that dangerous road.
Yeah, I hear your argument is one of more of sort of morality and ethics and keeping a system of checks and balances at some level.
Yeah.
Given the plurality of faiths in the U.S. particularly, do you think that there is an argument to be made for people who have different faiths or even the non-believers?
Sure. No, because we're in a country where tolerance is part of the national character, part of the national etiquette. Religion should never be imposed, only proposed. However, there is, I think, this general religiosity which properly limits the power of the state. And I think that's an important thing to have also in our national character. And I think you find that clearly in the Founding Fathers, who knew all about the toleration of the many religions, who did not want an official state religion. I subscribe to all that. But they also knew there had to be this general sense of God as a limit to tyrannical tendencies. And I think that's been true all throughout our history. And if we start jettisoning that, I think we're in some serious trouble.
Well, and that was going to be my last question, is are we, in fact, a nation under God? And what does that even mean? And you just mentioned the Founding Fathers. What does it mean today?
Well, I think what it means, if you take it seriously and not just as pious rhetoric, it means that you acknowledge there is some standard of truth and goodness and justice by which we are measured that we don't measure. We are not ourselves the criterion of goodness and justice and truth, but we are under a higher principle. That's a very important move. And if that gets jettisoned or questioned, then I do, tremble for the country.
Right. We are not the omniscient, omnipotent ones, right?
Yeah, yeah. We don't set the tone. We don't set the moral tone.
I gotcha. Okay, well, Father Robert Barron, that is all we have time for today. Very much appreciate your insights.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Well, stay tuned. We have much more in store as Currents looks ahead to our nation's celebration of the country's 235th birthday. But first, we sent our cameras to a local Independence Day parade, and we asked people a few questions. The first one was about the American flag. We quizzed people to see if they knew who even sewed the flag in the first place.
I know Betsy Ross had something to do with it. I don't know if she did the first one.
Betsy Ross.
Betsy Ross.
I know that the common answer is Betsy Ross, but I've heard that that's not true. So I don't think it's Betsy Ross. Maybe the Abigail, I think.
Washington.
Betsy Ross, if I'm not mistaken.
Betsy Ross.
Welcome back. Well, now we go from a patriotic controversy to discussing the reason for the holiday season. And if you're of a certain age, like somebody that I know pretty well, you have certainly earned the right to lecture folks on just how things were done back in the day, and that includes holiday celebrations. Well, I'm sure that there are those of you out there in TV land who remember our nation's celebration of independence as a very different kind of affair than it is right now. Perhaps there were more flags than sales, more parades than barbecues. Well, it just so happens that your memories would look a lot like Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio's, who sat with Matt McClure and went into the deep to share his memories of Independence Day and more.
Bishop DiMarzio, thanks so much for being here.
Good to be here.
Appreciate your time. Well, believe it or not, Independence Day is upon us here, and it's hard to believe. I mean, the year just flies by now.
It does.
But it's just about here. What are some good memories as we start off this conversation that you have growing up of celebrating Independence Day?
Well, I think that as I was growing up, it was probably a little bit more focused on patriotic issues. Certainly, there was the fireworks at night that you look forward to. And in general, hanging the flag out, perhaps that was another kind of ritual part of the day, recognizing that, we gained independence at a price and that we were proud to be a free country. I think those were the main things that I remember.
Sure. And, I think as with a lot of holidays, it's probably become something a little bit different. Talk to us about how Independence Day might have changed, the observances might have changed over the years.
Well, over the years, I guess we're kind of observing the 4th of July on a Monday or a Friday, you know, and even if it falls on a different day. So you're getting that weekend, you're getting that holiday weekend. So it kind of takes a little bit away from the day itself. But I know people do use it as a time of picnicking and family gathering, which is all very, very good. The patriotic side of it, you know, really is shown in some of the parades that you see and some of the other reenactments, especially this year, I think, with the anniversary of the beginning of the Civil War. You're going to see a lot of reenactments of battles or of sites that's been happening. We recently, right here in Brooklyn at the cemetery, they had reenactment of people of some of the battles because I guess a lot of there are 4,600 soldiers from the Civil War buried in Greenwood Cemetery. So, but you know, again, anything we can do to remember that freedom has a cost is a very good thing, because then we'll be more attentive to trying to preserve freedom in our own day.
Right, right. So the cookouts, the barbecues are all well and good. Just keep that part of it in mind.
Exactly.
Well, as far as the founding of this nation goes, what kind of significance did Catholics play? Did they play a significant role in the founding of the nation?
Well, there was a role. There were a minority, obviously, at the beginning, but we had Catholics who did sign the Declaration of Independence. You had Maryland at that time, which was kind of the so-called Catholic state. But there was Catholic participation in the whole coming to independence of our nation. So it's something we remember. Obviously now Catholics have a greater proportion of the population, over 25%, play some key roles. Certainly the Supreme Court is kind of lopsided, being many Catholics in comparison to others. But we see that we've come of age, and we have contributed to the life of the country, and we will continue to do so.
Sure. Well, looking at the calendar, what are your plans for Independence Day?
Well, I did look at it in preparation for today. Well, I probably will be away. I think that weekend there's not too much you can do visiting parishes. Nobody's around. So I probably will have a few days off and meet some family and friends.
All right. Well, very good. Well, hopefully enjoying some good food and also remembering, you know, that freedom does have a cost, and remembering this Independence Day holiday. Well, Bishop DiMarzio, thanks so much for coming.
You're
in.
welcome.
Really appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks. Good to be with you.
Freedom is not free. Well, stay tuned. Why are war veterans suing the government over prayer at funeral services? We'll have that story and the rest of the day's headlines.
Francis Scott Key.
Francis Scott Key.
Tom Jefferson.
I think it was Francis. It was Francis or Jefferson? Probably Francis.
Francis Scott Key.
John Philip Susan.
Francis Scott Key. We all know that. You heard us say we're Americans.
Welcome back to Currents. Coming up in just a bit, the Knights of Columbus hit the streets of Dyker Heights for an early 4th of July celebration. But first, let's have a look at the rest of the day's headlines. Well, they may have fought for this country's freedom, but now their family members are the ones fighting for their religious freedom at one cemetery. Rux Russell has that story.
In a garden of granite, Houston's National Cemetery honoring those who answered the call to duty.
Miss them.
Donna Kessler completes the same journey she makes once each week to the tombstone of the husband she loved in life and honors in death.
Whenever I come to see my husband, I have emotions. It's 2 years, but it's not that long.
They are feelings etched in the heart, words etched in stone. Edgar Kessler, a Navy veteran resting on hallowed ground his wife fears could be in jeopardy.
It's backwards. We should honor our boys and their families.
Kessler's concerns surround the alleged censoring of religious speech following the funerals of servicemen and women. A complaint filed this week in federal court claims the cemetery's director informed a group of volunteers they could no longer say "God bless you" to grieving family members. Cheryl Whitfield is one of those volunteers.
I was thinking, what is this country coming to? I've heard this before, but I didn't think it hit a national cemetery.
A cemetery spokesperson refused to comment about the allegations and had nothing to say about the complaint. Edward Kessler served in both Vietnam and the Persian Gulf Wars, and like every other vet buried here, sacrificed for his country. His passing was a point of pain for his loved ones, and the language the cemetery is accused of restricting another potential blow.
They're restricting the families at the hardest time in these people's lives. And it's just wrong.
Frustration flourishing in a garden of granite.
That is Russell reporting there. Well, the nonprofit Liberty Institute has filed a lawsuit on behalf of the veterans of foreign wars, the American Legion, and the National Memorial Ladies. Well, an atheist group is planning to put its patriotic pride on full display this weekend, but is getting some intense blowback. The New Jersey-based group American Atheists will be flying planes with banners that say "God Bless America" and "Atheism is Patriotic" in 27 states on July 4th. Now, there's just one small glitch, though. Only 17 of the 85 pilots who can fly the banners have agreed to sign on. Pilots have reportedly declined to get involved because of their own religious beliefs and fear of backlash if they do take part. And the very existence of a Planned Parenthood in Kansas was up in the air this week. Just yesterday, the organization was granted a license to perform abortions in the state after having been denied a license earlier. Planned Parenthood will continue performing abortions now under new, stricter regulations that went into effect today. If the organization had been denied the license, Kansas would have become the only state in the nation without an abortion provider. Meanwhile, 2 other Kansas abortion providers that do not have licenses are asking a federal judge to block the new regulations from taking effect. Well, the Italian newspaper La Stampa reports that the Diocese of Cleveland may be getting an apostolic visitation from the Vatican. According to the report, the Holy See will investigate the diocese's decision to close 29 parishes and merge 41 others. The Cleveland Plain Dealer reports that more than a dozen parishes appealed their closings to the Vatican. Well, it's deja vu all over again. Someone has stolen from a church collection plate, but this time, the perpetrator is a group of cyber hackers who pinched the plate in a huge way. CBS News reports that $680,000 was stolen electronically from St. Ambrose Cathedral in Des Moines, Iowa. Now, the money had actually been collected for abused women and the homeless, and the parish's insurance company, however, and the bank, well, they eventually covered that loss. Well, Catholics in China say enough is enough. Asia News reports that close to 100 Catholics, led by Cardinal Joseph Zen, took to the streets to protest the way clergy is treated and to demand the release of clergy currently being detained or missing. The protest came the same week the Chinese government ordered a bishop without the Vatican's approval and placed a priest that was ordained, without the Vatican's approval, and placed a priest that was to be ordained with Vatican approval under house arrest. Well, from Pakistan now, the investigation into the murder of Catholic government minister Shahbaz Bhatti is on the right track. That is what Bhatti's brother Paul Bhatti tells Fides news agency. Now, Shahbaz Bhatti was one of 2 Pakistani officials assassinated this year after calling for the overturning of Pakistan's strict blasphemy laws. According to Paul Bhatti, his brother's murder is the work of Taliban and Islamic fanatics. In other news also from Pakistan, the country has abolished its federal ministry for religious minorities. It is one of 7 federal ministries that were closed, with their duties now moving along to the local level. And a television institution is coming to an end. A nearby Scranton, Pennsylvania television station reports that St. Anne's Media will stop producing a televised daily mass. The mass is currently broadcast live from St. Anne's Basilica in Scranton. The last daily mass will reportedly air on August 26, but a weekly televised mass will continue to air. Well, stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead. When we come back, a show of patriotism on the streets of Dyker Heights will take you to an annual 4th of July parade. But first, more thoughts from parade goers. This time, we asked them if they think that Americans are more or less patriotic than they used to be.
I think people are still patriotic. It's just that some of the younger people need to be indoctrinated into it.
No. No way.
Yeah, Americans are still patriotic.
The youth today have no respect for their elders, and as far as I'm concerned, you see a bunch of guys walking around with fatigues on. They've never spent 1 minute in the service. They need to bring the draft back as far as I'm concerned.
I guess it has gotten less, I think, just because there's so many people in the country that are not from here, so they have their own cultures that they celebrate.
Since the war started, we're getting a little bit better, being patriotic, and I do see a slight improvement.
We just gotta move them, gotta put a fire under them to get them to participate and show that they are Americans.
And finally tonight, Dyker Heights, Brooklyn was decked out in red, white, and blue patriotic finery last week as the Knights of Columbus celebrated their annual 4th of July parade for the 134th year in a row. The annual Brooklyn Independence Day is an early and eagerly anticipated start to our nation's birthday that boasts marching bands, drummers, and local community notables. Now, of course, any comparison to that other celebration across the river by a major retailer that shall remain nameless would be utterly unfair. But what this local parade might lack in pomp and fireworks, it more than makes up for in a community spirit that keeps people coming to make merry and celebrate the nation year after year.
This parade has been going on for 106 years. It was started by the first Brooklyn Knights of Columbus Council. It's a recognition of patriotism, Americanism, and all those wonderful things that our country represents, our flag. And also we respect the honor the armed forces of the United States. The other groups that are participating are Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, so a lot of the councils of the Knights of Columbus, and also civic organizations, the Merchants Association from 13th Avenue and other groups.
Today for me is freedom and to thank all the veterans, army men, for giving our country freedom.
Well, I would rather come here than go to the Macy's Day Parade is because although Macy's is more famous, this is just fun because it's in the community and the community is getting to know us better.
It brings back remembrance of things like the old taxis, the cars. It's like very lively. It makes you smile to see happy people.
The Knights of Columbus are a great asset to the community wherever they are in, and also they are a beacon of light in the United States of America.
Believe in the country, family, and what we stand for, and that's a celebration. It's like an anniversary, a birthday, and we're part of it. Believe it or not, coming from no matter which continent, which shore, we all here. That's what America means.
Our forefathers said we should be able to celebrate our religion no matter what it is, no matter who we worship. And that's one of the things that we're doing. We're doing it as Catholics. We're here to celebrate the United States of America, our country, and our Catholicity within our country. The Knights of Columbus give out 3 awards at the end of the parade. We give one called the Pro Patria Award for God and Country. That award will be given to Father Ed Kacherka.
This year they're honoring me with the Pro Patria Award, which I'm very humbled to accept. What I'm asking everyone to do is to thank God for all the freedoms that we do have, the liberties that we have, and to believe in God, believe in country, believe in each other, so that we can make America very prosperous and a wonderful country. And God bless America.
My grandfather was a Knight of Columbus, and I remember going to those parades when I was a kid. Well, that is it for this edition of Currents, but that is not it for the great programming that you have come to expect to find on the net. If you don't have any holiday plans tonight, Net's got you covered. Just pop in some popcorn, sit back, relax, and watch Indie Films of Faith on Faith Film Festival at 8 o'clock. But if you're just determined to go to the movies and pay $15 for a Diet Coke, fine. Just do not walk out the door until you have checked in with our esteemed movie critics on Real Faith. That is at 8:30 p.m. They'll tell you what to watch. Well, until then, I must bid my Carnes family adieu. It has been great being with you for the week, but I hear that Matt's coming back and he wants his job back, but I'm sure I'll be seeing you again. Well, for all of us here at Currents, I'm Francesca Maxime. Have a happy and a very safe 4th of July. We leave you now with more from parade goers who shared with us what's best about Independence Day.
Our freedom. Can't put a price on that.
Freedom in the United States, that's the best part.
Just to know that we are all one.
Celebrating, watching the American flag and the American people will live comfortably in this country.
No matter what my heritage is, I am an American first.
I get a feeling in my body that's better than Christmas morning. It's almost like when you see your child or your grandchild being born for the first time. It encaptures your whole spirit, and you get the chills, your hair stands up, and you feel real proud to be part of America.